It's gone live by the looks of it. So, good evening, members. Welcome to the Policy Committee of the 30th of March and members of the public and officers as well. We'll crack straight on with it. We know the systems by now for working online. So, with a couple of people for public participation. So, that's item 3. So when we get to that, we'll bring you on. So first and foremost, apologies for absence. Are you in charge of that, Guy?
I am, yep. So there's no apologies for absence. And at this point, I'll just do a quick roll call as well of members present. If you just indicate that you're here at the meeting. So starting with Councillor Barrett.
Present.
Councillor Foster, yeah. Councillor Heseltine. Not yet, no. Councillor Ireton.
Present.
Councillor Liz.
Present.
Councillor Madeley.
Here.
Councillor Metcalfe.
Present.
Councillor Morell.
Present.
Councillor Mulligan.
Present.
Councillor Myers.
Present.
Councillor Noland.
Present.
Councillor Place.
Present.
Councillor Rose.
Present.
And Councillor Wheeler.
Present.
Okay, so it's just Councillor Heseltine who's not with us at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Confirmation of minutes, members. Any comments? Looking for hands shooting up or people waving, but nobody's doing anything. So are we happy? Looking for nods on those. Yep, seeing plenty of nods, so we'll carry on through that. So public participation. With 2 members of Skipton Town Council here, I'm not sure who wants to go first. Is it Councillor Shaw? Or
good evening, councillors.
David, are you going first? Over to you.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our items that we'd like to show you. The reason I'm here to talk about it is because in the last sort of 6 months, more than ever, I've had to report lots of problems to Tracy McCluskey, who's the Environmental Health Officer, in as much as sending her photographs of items that have been left here and there, and it seems to be taking over most of my spare time, really, which is quite time consuming when you've got neighbours complaining to me about somebody's left the wheelie bin out and it's tipped over and there's rubbish everywhere, somebody's left a fridge out and all these kind of things. So myself and Councillor Shaw have presented to you some very short shots of different pictures. To start with, I'd like to show you some pictures from Colne, Earby and Barnoldswick, and then I'd like to show you a few little problems that we have in Skipton that you might be able to help us with. So I'd like to hand over to Councillor Shaw, who will show you some slides on his computer, and then I'll give a little bit of a commentary as we pass through. It shouldn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes. Thank you.
My screen.
So these pictures were taken over the weekend, last Saturday and Sunday, when I visited Barnoldswick, Earby and Colne, and I took some photographs, which I'll just present to you now. It just really shows the conditions of the back streets mainly, and litter problems which exist locally.
Rather than problems with moving.
So I've discovered from looking around Colne and Barnoldswick that they don't seem to have a problem with the litter that we seem to have. Well, it started off when I drove from the Snagill roundabout to the travel lodge on the bypass called Rotary Road, I think it is, and there's a lot of litter at the sides of the verges there a few weeks ago, and you know, it was quite a shock, really. So
can I just remind you, as a rule, we only give 3 minutes per speaker. So that's the rule at the council. So
on that point, then we'll just go through the pictures. So I won't even talk about them. Darren, just
no, please do, but just be mindful. That's all.
We'll talk at the end. Just go straight for the pictures. I didn't know it was 3 minutes, but go on then. You take the pictures, Darren, one after another. Go straight to the end. There's only 15 slides. I can forward these to you later on, Councillor Foster.
Please do, yeah.
Just keep going, Darren, all the way through. You can see there's no litter, wheelie bins. You can see wheelie bins are in the backyards. There's no dog fouling and there's no moss in the corners. That's absolutely fantastic. These pictures are stunning. I can't believe it's 5 wheelie bins in that one. Keep going, Darren, all the way through. 5 wheelie bins in there. Right, nearly coming to the end now. So we'll put the next ones up, Darren. There's a sticker on that bin there. £60 fine, fixed penalty notice if you don't have your wheelie bin in. Okay, that's how good they're. Traditional streets, cobbled, fantastic. Okay, very impressive. Very, very, very impressive. Right, so we'll move on to the next one. This is my presentation in Skipton. This is Darren's now, so we'll, do you want to speak, Darren?
We can do, yeah. So we went for a bit of a trip around the town, and obviously Skipton's a great place to be, one of the happiest places to live, according to Sunday Times. We've a claim to fame that we've received accolades for being happy, courteous, national statistics in 2007, and it's something that you know, we need to shout about, and that we invoke a feeling of contentment. It's obviously known as the gateway to the Dales, and it's a perfect place to explore the landscape on foot and beautiful walking trails, from leisurely strolls to long distance treks or bike. But whatever you choose to do in Skipton, you won't be disappointed. Now, the real truth is that we're blighted with uncontrollable fly tipping, wheelie bins left in back streets, sometimes overflowing, causing issues for residents, emergency services, and our offenders are left to go unpunished. Broughton Road seems to be a forgotten area. As you can see there, things are just escalating. There's no action taken. Thornton Road area, Sawley Street, this is still there from 3 weeks ago. Dog fouling, this has never been cleaned for years. Middletown, we've got a historic town here, and it doesn't reflect well. Westland Street, what are we actually doing about it? And then the High Street, this has been there for nearly 4 weeks. Is it really what we want to give an impression to the town over? And then the Engine Shed Lane, 4 years. We can only assume now that you're having your new waste plant that these have been removed. And then the Conservative offices. Is this really what Julian Smith MP for? I don't think he'd be right happy. So what's the solution? We want to bring about a policy change and start to enforce the Section 46 notice. Educate residents via newsletters, social media, website, warning notices. We have employed in a civil enforcement officer for car parking fines. So why can't we add this to their duties when they're not doing this on market days? It's just another way of trying to tidy up the town. Legislation was introduced to impose penalties and on residents who fail to participate correctly in the enforcement in the scheme of recycling. Wheel bins, recycling boxes shouldn't be stored in the highway or pavement or an alleyway. So why aren't we enforcing it? Another section on with a section notice. It's part of the Environmental Protection Act. But mostly, it keeps the streets clean, which leads to a reduction in crime, increased participation in the wheel bin recycling scheme, to an increase in recycling and reduction of waste sent to landfill. Thanks for listening to us.
We've just got one more quick. We'll go through the quick slides down if you put the next one up. The main problem we've discovered is that the litter is caused by the wheelie bins because they blow open, litter blows out of the bins and ends up everywhere. If the wheelie bins were in people's backyards, you'd have a massive reduction in your resources that you're having to invest in staff, in cleaning the streets and chasing up people who are fly tipping. And I think a policy change, if it's good enough for Earbycombe and Barnoldswick, and it works over there, I don't really think you're having to reinvent the wheel. It's just a question of just giving it a try and seeing what they can do about it. Seeing if we can impose a threat of a fine, not a fine straight away, but obviously try and educate people with newsletters and try and educate the public of Skipton to pull the socks up and keep the back streets cleaned. And if you have to fine them. But generally speaking, if Pendle takes somebody to court, they don't turn up anyway. Plus, it's a civil matter, so there's very little resources involved in this. But once somebody's being fined, the word will spread. And I do think Skipton has been let down over the last few years by lots of problems like this, which we could deal with better. I'm only a town councillor, but I'm getting a lot of grief from my neighbours every time something appears somewhere. Can we put the last slides up, Darren? There's about 10 slides and then we're finished.
We've sort of been pretty lenient, guys, on the time here, and I think we've got the impression of where you're going with this. And I'm not saying you're incorrect or anything. I know Councillor Liss has probably got an answer for you. So, and I'm mindful of moving the meeting forward as well. So, yeah, I think the impression is quite clear as to where you're coming from. I did notice you had one slide of sort of like your potentials as well, which I think I read through as well. And please do share the slides with members. I think that'll be well worth doing. But we can move the meeting forward. That'd be great. Thank you. And thank you for coming as well. And sorry you weren't informed of the timescale either. Apologies there. Councillor Liss, if you want to respond.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chairman. And thank you to both Skipton Town councillors for coming. What I can tell you, I think, is it's fair to say that almost every village, every town, every hamlet has got problems with dog dirt, and it's something that we attach an awful lot of importance to. And indeed, at our last council meeting, we agreed as a short-term measure to try to bring in some company to try and increase our success rate in terms of enforcement. Dog dirt has been an issue for so long, it's incredible. And of course, it isn't the dog's fault, it's the owners, isn't it? And we need to educate people. We are, as a council, committed to continuing with our education problem, but we've been held up recently because of COVID. Our plan was to go into schools and talk to school children about the issues associated with both recycling and indeed climate change, but obviously refuse collection and refuse disposal is a large part of that. Currently, the council doesn't direct residents to take bins into their backyards, where bins are stored at the rear of the properties. Now, I have to say, we've had a good deal of cooperation, particularly from Skipton residents, in terms of our policy, where we had to look at central collection points. And I would be a bit backward, I have to say, in having imposed that and had success with that, at suddenly imposing a system whereby everybody had to take the bin inside of the gate. However, we shall look at it. What I can tell you is we do make visits currently to check that storage of wheelie bins is orderly, and write to residents where there are issues with the misuse of wheelie bins. But we've not had any cause to date to issue any fixed penalty notice. Now, you may hold your hands up and say, what? Well, there's all this going on. Well, okay, we'll try and do a bit more of looking around. But we rely to a large extent on the public letting us know. And I can tell you that Tracy McLucky has acted on quite a number of the issues that you've already brought up with her, or whichever one of you it is, or indeed both of you. I can tell you that Verge cleaning of all our major through routes in the district will commence on the 6th of April. And we do urge drivers to leave the litter by the roadside, not to leave the litter by the roadside. It's unsightly. It presents a safety risk to wildlife, the environment, and indeed those tasked with picking it up, and diverts valuable resources away from providing essential services. We have requested some additional litter picking in the area that you've highlighted to Tracy McLuckie, our lead officer on that, for the removal of some fly tipping. We are on the case, but this isn't just Skipton, it's district wide, and education is what we've got to concentrate on. We've got to, the bins don't overflow, bins don't fill themselves, people put too much in them. We've got to try and increase our efforts to educate people, and that is included as one of our ways forward for the future. So I'm sure this won't answer all of your things, all of your issues you brought. We don't need a change of policy. We already have a policy driven by government legislation, which says that we can enforce and we will fine. It's just perhaps we haven't been maybe as keen as other neighbouring authorities have been on the enforcement side of it. We'll have to look at that. But thank you again very much for your presentation tonight. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you from me, guys. And it's sometimes good to see stuff, and especially with lockdown and stuff, we probably haven't been about as much as members as we would like to have been into the local areas. So, but yeah, thank you for bringing it to our attention, and you know, we'll look at it. We'll look how we can improve it. It needs, just judging by photographs, we do have. Maybe we could be doing more. I think is the top and bottom of it. So leave it with us.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Nice evening. Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
So public participation over, I believe. So declarations of interest, members. Looking round, nobody looking, waving, putting their hands up. So we'll move on to item 5, Q3 performance monitoring report. Are you delivering this, Patrick, or is Richard?
I'll just say a word or two first, Richard, if that's all right.
That's fine, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, normally I would just pass this over to the officers, but I just wanted, I had a correspondence with Councillor Pringle. He had some concerns about overspend in the planning area, and I just wanted to address that before I pass over. So Councillor Pringle had 2 questions, and members, this is on page 12 of the report in your papers. And Councillor Pringle had a question about the overspend, which was £277,233. And his first question was, does this financial performance concern us? And it absolutely does concern us. Whenever we have that sort of overspend, it sets alarm bells ringing, and we are looking into it, always monitoring it. And then his second question was whether I could circulate some further information to members about the income and expenditure breakdown in the planning department. And all I would say is that this again is, to a degree, it is COVID that is responsible for this large overspend. I think it's mainly, I'll just make 3 points. One, and Rob Atkins can, I'm sure, develop this if he wants to, but it is true that development control is contributing to the majority of the current estimated overspend in the whole department. Mainly, I would just say, to put it in context, that there's 2 elements of unrecognized service fees and charges compensation that we get from the government that has not been recognized in this report. And that amounts to a total of £147,000. So that's quite a substantial offset to the 277. You know, we haven't put it in because we're expecting it, but I don't think all of it has been confirmed yet. I think we've received some of it, but we haven't received all of it. So I'll just leave it there. I will be happy to circulate that report to members, which will give a further breakdown of all of the income and expenditure and planning. And I'm sure that Rob might be wanting to say something about it, and as well as Richard Wing is also here with us. So thank you, Chairman. I'll pass over to Rob.
Thank you, Councillor. Hi, members. I'm not on mute, am I? That's good. Thanks for the introduction. So this is our performance report for Q3, which is October to December of this financial year. So we're catching up with ourselves a little bit here. So overall, the performance during Q3 was fairly similar to Q2. We're still as far on track with the council plan priority actions as we were in the previous quarter. There were 4 that were listed as amber, one of which is the town hall development, which is where we expect it to be, and the team have done a very good job of bringing that on track. It's amber because we won't meet the original deadline for delivery, not because we don't know where we are with it. It's so that will we hope be ready in time for the proposed public opening. We still don't believe that we'll meet the target for universal access to high quality broadband by 2022, although there is some work going on to try to accelerate that. And the other areas that we're not on track for are to do with waste and recycling, topically enough. The number of flight incidents that was a concern last time has reduced slightly for Q3, but I worry that we may see it increase a little again in Q4, and it does seem to be related to restrictions imposed as a result of COVID-19 that have a relationship with the number of fly tipping incidents. We've generally had very low sickness absence rates across the council. Rates of PDR completion have been mostly high, but with some variation that we would expect to see addressed to some extent in Q4. We know that the data for Q4 will be slightly better. Obviously, the net expenditure position is quite challenging for quite a few services at the moment, mostly as a result of the pandemic. Councillor Mulligan referred to the situation in planning, which is less good than we expected it to be. My colleague James Horden, I know that you will know, works more in this area more than I do, has prepared a detailed summary of where we're up to with the finances for the planning department, which I'm sure that we're able to share with members. So I'm not going to go into more detail specifically on that, because I think that we can share that directly with members so they can see where we are with it. Right, I'm going to end there and see. I'll take any questions.
I wasn't letting me unmute. I've managed to unmute. I have Councillor Wheeler to start with.
Thank you, Richard. A couple of things. So I've answered I've had a load of questions answered in advance, so I'm happy to forward that email on to members rather than bore them and go through it all again. The phasing. I mean, the question that Councillor Mulligan answered, it's odd. It's in the fact that we kind of addressed that or looked at it at the last policy meeting, and I think we needed. There's a disconnect between the performance this third quarter and the capital and revenue monitoring. And I know Rob said there's a lag, and I wasn't quite sure the reason why, but really, we should be considering the revenue and the capital monitoring and the performance all in the same meeting. Other bits, it's apropos the presentation earlier, really. So there's been a lot of noise around littering and dog fouling, but if you look at the actual statistics, only 8 dog fouling incidents were on there, 8 out of the whole district. Littering only 30 out of the whole district for 3 months. It's if you're looking at the bare statistics, it seems it's somewhat insignificant. And I've been told that an incident is anything where somebody reports to our department. So it's a conundrum. I honestly can't believe that only 8 people out of the whole of Craven District Council in 3 months have reported dog fouling incidents. it's somewhat bewildering. And PDRs, I didn't get an answer back, Rob, from economic development, but I know David's around. So the PDRs are still 0% at the third quarter. I just wondered if there was a reason, and bearing 2 days away from the end of the year, will we have 100% PDR completion by the end of this municipal year? And I think that's probably it. Thank you.
Would you like to reply, Rob, if you...
I'm sure. I think probably quite a few of those were statements rather than questions, really. But the point about dog fouling, it's only an incident which is reported where somebody witnesses the incident of dog fouling. So if somebody is out for a walk at Malham and they see some dog muck at the side of the road and then they report that's not counted as an incident. They have to actually witness it, which I think is probably one of the reasons why it's a bit lower than it might otherwise be. I'll let David answer the question about PDRs in planning. The point about the information running out of sync, the performance information and the finance information, yes, that shouldn't have happened this time. It was as a result of our capacity and some events and the way that the calendar fell and all sorts of things like that that shouldn't really impact on it. And we'll make sure that doesn't happen again. It will be presented together in future.
You're Rob. David?
Yeah, there's no good reason. So it's they're all being scheduled in now, so they will be done very shortly. But a very, very busy team, but still there's lots of teams which are very busy.
Thank you. I've Councillor Metcalfe and Councillor Nolan.
Hi everybody. My question was going to be around the PDRs. I think I don't want to run the risk of repetition, but I just wanted to really understand why one of the busiest departments, revenues and budget, that have been absolutely rushed off the feet during the pandemic and done a pretty good job as far as I can see, why do they end up with 93% achievement of the PDRs by the due date, when other departments, some 0, and planning 29%. I think it was, I can't remember the one that was 0. I just wondered, the question is, how important and how seriously performance development reviews taken?
I'd say fairly serious, but
But
Paul,
it doesn't. The stats don't show that, do they?
Paul Shevlin, do you want to come on this? It's head of paid service, I suppose.
Yeah, PDR is taken very seriously. They're part of the monitoring performance that CLT and indeed lead members carry out. I got an update on the statistics today. 88.3% of returns have now been made on PDRs, which is a significant increase. And actually that is significantly up on last year. In particular, congratulate Waste Management, who struggled last year to get the PDRs done, who've actually got the vast majority done this time. So it is 88.3%, so it does show an improvement, and I guarantee we take it seriously. So why do we take it seriously? Because many of our training plans are actually based on the feedback from the PDRs. So they're actually crucial to our planning of training for staff, for the development of individuals, for the good of the organisation and the individuals themselves. So it is important. Any service that doesn't carry out their own PDRs, they're actually shooting themselves in the foot. Don't come to me and ask for any training in the future, because we won't put aside that budget in order to cover it. So it is really important that PDRs are carried out across the board. And I emphasise that every time we have a meeting. I can guarantee that.
And I can attest to that, because when we do come in, if the PDRs aren't in, then Paul wants to know why and where, and it can be down to how services are managed, I think, and how much maybe the managers put into it. But most services do them. Some are later than others and shouldn't be, and some are busier than others, but like you say, when you see that, you know, the finance services got theirs in, but it can also be size of team and just how it falls in their yearly working program. But yeah, they are seriously taken in.
Sorry, could I just add one more thing, Chair? Some of the PDR stats will be slightly misleading. So when we get long-term sickness, and that can be for a whole raft of different reasons, that may miss out on the PDR cycle. Or leavers who haven't actually been through that PDR cycle. So they can be slightly misleading, not to the extent that it massages the statistics at all. But I've certainly asked the HR manager to start looking at that side of it, just to see if we can give you a more accurate picture. So you know the actual numbers and how many have not been completed because of quite specific reasons due to might be personal circumstances. And I think that will actually help you to digest the figures overall as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Noland.
Thank you. 3 points. I did read through the whole thing, but I've just noticed in the financial management with only 9% PDRs completed, in the penultimate line it says, although the team's PDRs have now been completed. I think something's missing there. It says these were not reviewed and proven time to reflect in Q3. So maybe the 9% figure would be better, but there's something missing in the blurb at the top of that page. Secondly, dog fouling. I mean, I live in the Middletown area, and I think somebody said it's only instant if reported. But if I walked out tonight down Brougham Street and under Westmoreland, and then maybe took a U-turn around Duckett Street, I would, you know, you walk down Middletown, you got to look where you're going. There is a horrendous number of dog foul incidents in Middletown. It's terrible for it. I think one of the problems is people let their dogs out and don't follow them and don't clear up. But Middletown is terrible for dog fouling. I would report it if I saw somebody not look after their dog, but I haven't noticed that. So that's probably why. That's probably generally for people they don't see it being done, so to speak. The last thing, I did listen really carefully to Councillor Mulligan's reply to Councillor Pringle's question, and I'm sorry, I'm not an expert. I didn't understand it, but Rob Atkins says that you could give some clarification. I think Councillor Mulligan also said that further clarification of there was a report for us to read. Are we going to get that? Is that going to be sent around members to have a look at? Because I didn't understand the answer about the 147, which also left the question of 130,000 over budget. And those figures are quite excessive. I don't know, in the whole scheme of things of the council, they're quite small numbers, but there seems to be no answer about the 130,000, and it seems to be a horrendous amount of money to be over budget there.
Could I respond to that?
Yeah, please.
Go for it.
Talk slowly, please. Talk slowly.
What I was trying to say, David, is, as you know, and I think when we were doing our budget setting, we were talking about last year and how the government basically compensated us for lost revenue on our service fees and charges. They compensated us to something like 80%, between 70 and 80%. So what I was saying is that in those figures that you are seeing, we're expecting the government to compensate us for that lost revenue, probably up to 140,000, 150,000 pounds out of the 277. So I agree with you that we're down 130,000 pounds, which is a substantial sum of money. And I want to make sure that members can take some assurance that we will continue to monitor that area very closely, and we will I'll be bringing back another report to policy in the next quarter. I don't know if Rob wants to say anything.
And probably just to follow up, yes, there is a detailed reply that will be circulated around all members, isn't there? Looking, Rob's nodding. So yes.
Sorry, exactly what the lead just said. I'm just going to check with Richard that it's okay for us to circulate that, but I don't.
It's fine. If I could just add for members' clarity as well, Councillor Mulligan's explained that there's compensation for lost income, but there are some areas of additional cost within that service block. But you know, the biggest impact this year has been that the budgeted level of income that we'd expect to achieve across the service in a normal year is down by something around the order of 300,000. So yes, there are some lines of overspend compared to budget within that service block, but really the biggest issue that's affected the budget there is the loss of income, and we'll get some compensation back to cover that, but it's a substantial amount, and you know, if that would have been in order or overperformed as it does in some years, it would have helped to absorb some of the spending pressures on those budget lines as well. But you know, so it's not to gloss over the fact that there are a couple of underspends, and we'll send the information around. But you know, we went through this at the last policy meeting when we went through the budget. You know, the biggest issue there really is the loss of income, which is, you know, similar to other parts of the council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So, sorry, there was a point that Councillor Nolan picked up on as well about the 9% of PDRs in financial management being completed, and the notes appearing to not support that. Just to explain, there are two stages to the PDR process. One of them is completing the PDR itself, including the training plan. But because we take it as seriously as Mr. Shevlin suggested, there's another round where every single PDR is checked by a senior manager, and we, in this case, all of the PDRs had been written up and the training plans completed, but they hadn't been checked and verified and submitted to HR. They have now. It will be 100% in the next report.
Thank you for the clarity on that, Rob. Councillor Wheeler, coming back in with something.
Yeah, sorry. It was just something I forgot to add. I know Rob's already passed on my comments to customer services, but I think it's something I would like to sort of public record. In fact, the performance of 97.2% not only was an improvement, but in terms of calls answered, but it was a 520% increase in emails. So with that backdrop, I think the performance is absolutely tremendous. They're the front line, and they're responding to, I imagine, a lot more traffic. To achieve those actual statistics is a marvelous performance, and you know, I think we should certainly compliment them on.
Yeah, no, you're completely correct, Councillor Wheeler, and there's actually a lot of services that performed exceptionally well with the backdrop of a pandemic. Working from home for the customer services teams, you wouldn't think it'd be easy, but they have, you know, they've really stepped up. And you know, a lot of people, the council was the first point of call through the pandemic. They didn't know who else to phone up when they had a problem or an issue, and therefore they came to us, and making sure that that phone was answered on time and by those rings, you know, could be vitally important to people. So thank you for pointing it out, Councillor Wheeler. But I think if you do look through the performance as a whole, there is actually some good stories in amongst it as well. Some very good, to say there's a pandemic going on. So, Councillor Rose.
Thank you. Carrying on with Councillor Wheeler's comments about customer services, I noticed that we have now one person taking on two roles. I just hope that person isn't overworked. In the blurb at the beginning, putting together. Are you with me?
The chief exec's lit up, so here he goes.
Yeah, that was an amalgamation of management of the services, which has actually worked brilliantly. In truth, it's given a lot more seamless cooperation between the two services, which means we can deliver cover for customer services from business support under one manager. So actually, it's made things a lot more effective and a lot more efficient the way it is now delivered. And that individual, I guarantee, is enjoying the job, and you know, very, very capable officer. We've got some really capable officers throughout the whole organisation. That's just one example of it.
Thank you.
you, members. Looking around, no more hands up. It's to note and comment on. Well, I think we've commented on it, so I'm guessing, are we all happy to note? Looking around for nods, I'm guessing we don't need a vote on this guy. The next, no.
No vote required.
Councillor Wheeler, our monitoring officer said you were waving under declarations of interest. Did you have one to make, or?
I've been messaging Annette throughout that debate, actually. The only question I had was that a family friend has actually put his name to one of the quotes in the bid for the Craven Arts House. And I just wondered, would that exempt me from taking part in the debate or not?
Have you sussed that with the monitoring officer, and are you in a position to know what to do?
Chair,
I don't think I am.
No, we're still working through the detail, Chair. Perhaps we'll come back to interest when we get to that item.
So you may be declaring an interest on that item, but we'll wait with bated breath.
Well, yes, it's going to be worth waiting for. Thank you.
Right, on that note, we'll move on to agenda item number 6 and the climate emergency strategic plan, and over to Councillor Liz.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Well, members, it's just over a year now since the council first agreed a plan unanimously to act on the climate emergency. We made good progress on reducing the council's own emissions. The £1.2 million decarbonising Skipton programme will introduce new efficiency and renewable energy generation technology right across our estate. Match funding from the European Regional Development Fund has been agreed, and we're already advertising for contractors to carry out the first phase of the works. We exceeded our tree planting target with 9,000 trees planted on our land over the last year. And we're making progress with reducing emissions from vehicles, buying our first electric van and carefully planning new vehicle purchases, particularly for waste management, and adapting our waste management routes to use less fuel. We're also supporting staff to drive less with initiatives like our part-time parking scheme. In addition, we're also helping to reduce emissions across the district. For example, we're working with partners to make sure that public electric vehicle charging points are available at car parks in towns, larger villages and popular tourist destinations right across our district. We're always reviewing our new affordable housing developments for opportunities to improve their efficiency, and all of our new developments this year will include measures to reduce emissions, including solar panels and a high standard of insulation. However, we know that we need to do more, and hopefully you'll all see from this report the details of the activities that this council and its partners, most importantly its partners, will take over the coming year to move us further towards our ambition of becoming a carbon neutral district by 2030. Thank you very much, Chairman. And I just ask members to note the progress and note the three items in the recommendations, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Liz. Before anybody else flies in, you know, that was a brief synopsis of a very, very big programme.
It was, yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot more going on here. I do think we're progressive. I think some of the work we're doing at Leeds University and stuff like that sort of is sort of like beyond what a lot of other areas and a lot of other districts are actually doing. It's very easy to say you've got a strategic plan between 2020 and 2030 to go carbon neutral. It's a lot more difficult to actually do it. And I do think we're making great strides. Yeah, we could go further and faster. I'm sure Councillor Nolan's going to tell us in a minute how the Green Party would have done it all by now and would be actually carbon negative in about a week. But in reality, things take time to build. The partnerships and everything that Councillor Liz has been on about to build, and you know, it's thanks to him and Rob and the, you know, the team that are working on this and our partners, you know, that we're moving this forward, and I think that we're making really good progress. So I'll go to Councillor Nolan next, and Councillor Myers.
You want me ahead of Councillor Myers, yeah?
Yeah, I want you to tell us how you do it faster than Councillor Myers to say that you would.
I'll say my bit, then you can ignore me. Just a few points. Yeah, good. I take your point. Craven District Council, with its target of 2030, is well ahead of a lot of councils. Some councils have refused to even pass the motion that we did. So yeah, I think we're well ahead of a lot of councils. So, you know, big pat on the back for all of us here, especially yourself as leader, leading on this. Regarding EV charging points, electric vehicle charging points, I know they're not the be all and end all, and hopefully in the long run people will move away from cars. So it will slowly happen, especially people taking on electric bikes. And anecdotally, I'd say there are a few people, just offhand, I see 7 or 8 people on electric bikes around town that I haven't seen before. I think there's a definitely movement. And if you ask Chevin and other cycle shops, you can't get one of those for months because of the demand. But where do you park them? And I noticed in the report that it does say that there is a bit of a lack of cycling provision in town. But I want to raise the point of the possibility of cycle hangars, especially in areas like Middletown, other densely populated areas like maybe down the Broughton Road, where people might not have the space to park a bike. If families take on bikes, where do you put 3 or 4 bikes safely? And there are areas, especially London and Bristol in particular, that have gone into cycle hangars big time, and so they take up the space of 1 car on a street, and I can see the car drivers going, "Oh, that's a parking space gone." But if we do these things right and encourage people to move away from cars, and I'm giving up my car this year, I'm going to share my partner's, so that's 1 less car for a start. Could we? I'd like, and I've got some ideas that I'm going to pass on to Rob Atkins this week about it. Motioning how other people have done it in other areas, other cities. Could the council investigate that idea of cycle hangars? So it's a pod where 6 cycles are parked, it's locked, and people rent the space. And typically it's about £20-25 a year, which would be quite affordable. If people haven't got anywhere to park a bike, it might encourage them to, I've got a safe space to park it, and the hangar would pay for itself in 6-7 years. I know it's outlay, but you get people to rent the space, you get them to pay for it. What other things? There's the trees planted in Airville Park. There's been some damage. Does the council know how many were damaged? I think rabbits, and there was a bit of vandalism. I don't know how many were damaged. It's brilliant they were planted. TPOs, there was recently the massive destruction to trees at the entrance to Skipton. I know it's nothing to do the council, and I know the tree officer, and the one tree officer we've got is working hard to protect as many trees as we can here, but those are fabulous mature trees at the entrance to Skipton. Has destroyed the vista for people coming to Skipton or living here. So more power to Michael Gaines' elbow there to list as many as he can. I know David Smurthwaite's on it. But it was terrible destruction. I know it's mentioned in Craven Herald a couple of weeks ago. And that's about it. At the moment, no, there's no panacea, Richard, but just some points. Finished.
So more points and questions. Well, like I say, I'm sure Councillor Liss will go and look at cycle points and see what's happening with those and cycle pods. I'm mindful of putting things out in streets in Middletown and Broughton Road after our previous thing, but if it's a good reason, why not? Anyway, Councillor Myers.
Yeah, just on that one, actually, I think probably it's rather easier in cities like Bristol, because they're also the highway authority. We have a problem that we're not the highway authority. So it's something that will have to be done with North Yorkshire. But I think those of us who have been involved in the master plan for Skipton and the station area improvements as part of the massive LEP funded region, realise that underpinning most of what we look at are considerations for better forms of transport, more ecologically sound forms of transport. And I think what is very refreshing is how very embedded in the way of thinking of the council these issues now are. And I think for that, we thank all councillors and the officers who've really taken the bull by the horns on this, and particularly Rob Atkins, who has done a huge amount of really good work. And the report that's before this committee, which obviously members of the public who may be watching don't see, is a really thorough, comprehensive report. We could be here all night if we went through it line by line. But it's a very, very good report. I really recommend those who are interested to look on the District Council's website, the policy paper. They'll see that report. It's a huge amount of work. Thank you very much, Rob, for all your work. I do think there's been a great culture change on the council. I'm very proud to be involved in it. And, it is at the forefront of our minds, and we're always looking for ways to move it forwards. And quicker the better.
Councillor Myers, Councillor Nolan, you appear to have re-raised.
Thank you. I missed one point I wanted to make. It's a bit clouded by the point about we're not really the Highways Authority, but some residents have asked me that I know on new developments we're looking to EV charging points to be installed, but what about the current residents? So people have asked me, what can they do? Because the whole country's kind of moving to electric vehicles, and they're saying, well, what do we do? Especially, somebody living on Western Street, Brougham Street, or whatever, where I am. What provision? Well, okay, very simply, has the council investigated at all the possibility of bays, a bay put aside for charging on the streets? I know it involved probably contacting company, but other cities are doing it. You can walk around London, you'll see them. Has the council investigated that? Because current residents are saying, have we got a kind of, and there's one particular house on Gargrave Road where they've got the wire coming out over the hedge across a pole into their van. What help is the council considering for that? And I'm suggesting the idea of dedicated bays, and not the whole town riddled with them, but maybe a trial on certain streets. But I don't know what the legalities are of doing that on a street. But the problem residents are telling me is, what do they do? Are they going to have to install the hardware? I have no idea what to do there to charge their own cars if they are moving to electric vehicles. What help are we going to do about this?
I think there's tower blocks, everything else of also things. Do you want to come back on that, Councillor Liz?
Yeah, I mean, we as I said in my very brief report, I admit that I thought the report was good enough that I didn't need to go into an awful lot of detail, because the report is, as Councillor Myers says, excellent. But we are starting with car parks, and that's going to take quite a bit of doing. After that, we'll look at other alternatives. But I would suggest that the average householder, they're looking at providing trickle charging, which it could be plugged into a 13 amp socket in your house. Certainly in the short term. In the longer term, we need to look at whatever we can do. But there'll be little point at the moment in us looking at providing householders with charging, because there's not that many people have them. That will of course improve, but we're hoping that the work we're doing on car parks, particularly right across the district, will suffice for now, and we'll approach each hurdle as it comes to us. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, indeed, an excellent report and obviously very detailed. And there's a lot to be encouraged by, particularly the understanding that transport across the region is essential, and the link between buses and trains and so on. And I know that is being looked into in detail. Just with respect to the report, synopsis following the sort of conference, the virtual conference we had on environmental issues, a greener Skipton and the Dales. I noted that there are two groups, the Action on Climate Emergency SETTLE and the Otley Community Energy Group. Obviously, are they groups worth liaising with to find out things that they found useful, helpful at work? If they've invented the wheel, can we borrow it, sort of thing? Just a question, really. Are they groups worth liaising with? Because presumably they may be a bit ahead of us. I don't know. Thank you.
Probably going to come to Rob on this one, I'm guessing, Carl, unless you want to go.
Well, yeah, if you don't mind. Yeah, I mean, part of the excellent work, Rob, and indeed Darren Maycock as well. There's an awful lot of work going into this, but Rob has met up and continues to meet up with a lot of different organisations right across the district. And I can tell you, Councillor Rose, that the Settle Initiative is one of those bodies that we listen to, and they listen to us. I think that's important as well. But if Rob Atkins wants to add anything to that's absolutely fine. But we are doing an awful lot.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Yeah, the ACE Settle group are very active, and we speak to them a lot. They're part of the Craven Climate Action Partnership, and they send at least one representative to every meeting and every session that we have. So we do speak to them a fair bit already. I think obviously the Otley Energy Group are outside of our area, but I do think it's worth staying in touch with them. That they are making some good progress, particularly on looking at the use of private finance in funding some larger renewable energy initiatives. So that's definitely something that we should be continuing to talk about. I will say generally, I'll just repeat that I feel slightly uncomfortable accepting the credit that I'm being given for the report, because it really is Paul Ellis's and David Smurthwaite's teams that do the work. I have the pleasure of reporting on it. So I feel that we should be sharing the credit on that. Thank you.
Just tell you, Rob, take the credit when it's offered. Never be embarrassed to take credit for somebody else's achievements.
Somebody's got to stick the name on the report, Rob, and if it was a tale of war, you'd be getting the grief, and the Paul Ellis and David Smurthwaite have been running a mile. So
yeah, don't worry. Yeah, they duck. No, but I mean, I think you said it's a credit to all the officers, from the chief executive down, because everybody's taken this on, haven't they? And to do the very best we can. So, and thanks to Carl.
Well, what I would say, it's an absolute pleasure working with the team, and the progress that they've made has been just excellent. We've got a long way to go, but the progress, we've done everything that we've been able to do so far. There's a fantastic team from Robin and everyone else that's involved with it. Tracy McLuckie, brilliant, absolutely fantastic, the work they're doing.
I've had it moved. I'm guessing that'll need a seconder from.
I'll second it. Yeah.
All right. Councillor Rose, you just want to come back in briefly before we.
Very quickly, yes. I think there's something that we, which I have to certainly learn to appreciate, is that so much is going on, as shown in the report, whoever produced it, it's wonderful as it is we just need to understand that these things take time, and we want to get it right at the beginning and not sort of rush in and make ridiculous mistakes or whatever. So
whilst there's a sense of urgency and possible impatience, it is important to appreciate the need to take time over doing things carefully and making sure we get it right straight away. And I know some people say, well, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Why hasn't this happened? Why hasn't that happened? It's this appreciation that it will take time. And I certainly am trying to learn to appreciate that. So it was just a final little point I wanted to make. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. I'm looking around. Do we need to take a vote on this guy, or is it a nod? Or
yeah, we do need to take a vote, of course. It is a little bit more than just noting this one. So, yeah, if you could indicate whether you wish to vote for, against, or abstain, please. Councillor Barrett?
For.
Councillor Foster?
For.
Councillor Ireton?
For.
Councillor Liz?
For.
Councillor Madeley? Councillor Madeley must have left us. Councillor Metcalfe?
For.
Councillor Morell?
For.
Councillor Mulligan?
For.
Councillor Myers?
For.
Councillor Noland?
For.
Councillor Place?
For.
Councillor Rose?
For.
And Councillor Wheeler?
For.
Thank you, it's unanimous.
Thought it might be members. It's always has been when it's been the climate emergency, so that's good news as well that the members are backing it, which is really, you know, members, officers. That's how we get things done at Craven. Moving on, agenda item 8, Councillor Myers, Craven Arts House.